Morning, Francesca.
Morning.
Thanks for coming in. You're the first woman on our podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So we've got a little sash out the back for you. You can wear it by this global first woman on the podcast. But today we're going to talk about your profession and provide some insight into what you do and how it can help individuals and couples with sexual expression and intimacy and a whole volume of really interesting topics. First, I wanted to just talk about where you're from. You're from Ecuador?
Yeah, I was born in Ecuador, but my mom is Chilean. My dad was Italian.
Yeah.
And when I was 8, we moved to the US. And then when I was 13, we moved to Chile.
Yeah.
And I've been traveling for the last 11 years. So I always struggle with that question. I never know how to answer it really easily, I guess.
I couldn't pick where you're from. I've never met anyone from Ecuador.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting meeting you the other day and learning about what you do. And you've been traveling for 11 years.
11
How have you
years.
managed to do that?
The best way that I can put it is, you set an intention and you don't doubt it. No matter what other people are saying around you, it's their insecurities, it's their perceptions of realities. You know that you're going to be able to do it, and then you do it. And I quit university. I cut financial ties with my parents, and I just bought a one-way ticket to Australia, not having any work experience whatsoever, but I just knew. I knew that I was going to survive, that I was going to be successful, and that's how it just kept on happening. I just never doubted it. So different jobs here and there until I got to live in Barcelona, and I went to quit because I wanted to continue traveling, and my boss said, don't quit, just work from wherever you want. And that's how I became remote. And the rest is history, I guess.
How old were you when you moved into the field of, so you help people unleash their sexual power.
Yeah.
And you're a sensuality and sexuality coach. So until a couple of weeks ago, I didn't even know what that was. So can you describe, first let me know, how did you move into that field? And then I really want to dive into what that is.
It's funny because I started coaching on purpose and mindset. So I was a purpose and mindset coach. I've been traveling for 11 years, and people always ask me, like, how do you do it? And, I understood that people weren't really connected to who they truly were. And if you don't know who you are, you really don't understand what your purpose is. And when you're not aligned in that way, then you don't have the strength to go after whatever it is that is going to make you happy or going to give you peace or whatever. And so I went into purpose and mindset shifts. I'm really good at reinventing myself, at changing. I just look at different ways. I just look at situations in different ways, and I continue changing my mindset to be able to get to where I want to go. So I went into that field. But I love talking about sex. Like, sex is such a vital thing in it. People are always coming up to me and saying, you're very sensual. You flirt. It seems like you're flirting all the time with everybody. My mom jokes about it, saying that I flirt with plants. I flirt with everything. Yeah. And, I'm not aware of that, but I am aware of this sexual energy that I have constantly, like, flowing through me. And it's an expansive energy. It's a creative energy. There's a lot of confidence there and a lot of, like, understanding of who I am and just being able to move with what I am made of. Right. And I love it. It's such a vital energy. And apart from that, I love talking about sex in general. With people about exploring sex. There's so much taboo around it. Not a lot of people really like to talk about it. They really don't know too much about it either. And I love just opening that up to people to talk about, have you done this? What has been your experience through this? Like, this is what I've discovered with my own body or with somebody else, and just laugh about it. And I kept on being the person that had more experience or that, was more open to exploring more things. And suddenly I actually shifted this year. My business coach said to me, I was just having dinner with her and she's like, okay, Francesca, don't don't react but hear me out. I think that you should be a sexuality coach. And I was like, okay. And I kind of just saw like how it felt inside of me and it really felt nice.
It felt right.
Oh yeah. I loved it. Right. 2 days later, 2 friends here in Ubud had nothing to do with my business coach. They were like, Francesca, you should be a sexuality coach. And then 2 cousins, in Chile, like the following week, Francesca, have you ever thought of being a sexuality coach? And so like just people kept on saying that and I understood, okay, I think that this is what I need to do. And I was struggling with not understanding how to connect because it's all fun and games talking about sex, how to touch yourself, having orgasms and so on and being fully sexually expressed. But I love going very deep as well on spirituality, on who you are, etc. And I was struggling to understand how to connect with that. And then I understood that, it's all about self-love, and self-love is such a profound thing and you explore it through so many different avenues. Sexuality is one of the most important things, ways of exploring it as well. So that's basically how I got into it.
That's how it came about.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like you were always practicing it, but unofficially. Because I imagine you wouldn't have just stepped into this role like, yeah, I'll start talking to people about this.
No.
You were doing it anyway, and then people encouraged you to say,
all the time.
You need to officially position yourself there and announce to the world that this is what you're good at.
Yeah.
It's helping people through this field.
And, my family is very open about...
This is what you mentioned the other day. I was going to ask you about your mother and your culture. First, tell me about her.
Yeah. So I remember I think I was like 6 years old and my mom started talking to me about sex and I didn't even know what that was, and she was like, just be really open and explore. Yeah. You have to explore as much. No, you have to explore as much as you can. And, just do as much as I remember she used to use this phrase, you have to be a lady in the streets and a tramp in bed type of thing. Yeah.
I thought only guys said that.
Nope. My mom was, so she basically planted that seed in me. And so when I started, exploring, sexuality, my mind already was very open. There weren't taboos around it. There were still taboos around it from society. You're still surrounded by other people. But my family was so supportive in that way that I didn't close myself off in that respect. And so I just started kind of just exploring.
Just aligned with that frequency from very young.
Yeah, very. And my family in general, we're a lot of cousins. We love to talk about sex. We get together. We're all like girl cousins and we just talk about like the craziest things. Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
It's so fun.
Is that typical for your culture?
It's so funny.
Because we don't do that where I come from.
It's funny that you asked that because I don't believe so. So, my family, most of them live in Chile right now. And if you talk to a lot of people in Chilean society, there's a lot of taboo around it. They come from a very religious background, very Catholic. Yeah. And so everything is very kind of like, shh, you don't really talk about those things and you feel uncomfortable around those things. Now that we're talking, I remember when I was a teenager and I used to have like all my best friends, my girlfriends in school, and we were already talking about sex and, if they are losing their virginities, like at that stage of the process. And I used to tell them, if I had had sex with a guy and I don't know, something had happened and his condom just got stuck inside of me, or we were exploring different things, that my mom would be the first one to know. Like I would just talk to her and just laugh about it and whatever. And my friends would be like, if I spoke to my mom like that, I would die,
I bet.
Yeah.
Most of us would,
Yeah.
Well, the other day, like you've expressed the mechanics involved with sex. You teach people about orgasms and breathing and all that sort of thing, which I find very interesting. But something you opened up on was that collective package that's important for a couple. So I'll start there with couples because I've got a lot of questions for you.
Sure.
So with men and women and the difficulties that they have behind closed doors, and when I asked you about that, you said that there's a lot more. You won't just sit a couple down and say, well, what are you doing? How do you initiate sex? And figure out how to better that. You go further out and look at the full spectrum of what's happening in life.
So to be honest, I like working with individuals. And it is because I don't believe that you depend on your couple to be fully sexually expressed. I believe that you depend on what's happening inside of you. So there are so many different factors in life that are, nothing exists in isolation of anything else. So everything is absolutely connected. If you are not doing very, very well in your finances, how is that going to affect how you see yourself? Maybe you feel like you're not good enough in so many different areas. And that in itself is going to affect your sex life and how you see yourself and how much you love yourself. So it's very important to first start with the individual and understand what's happening with them. And then, if everything is set, then see what the chemistry is like. Is it communication? Is it anything else that you really need to explore with your partner? But first, you really need to just understand what's happening with you. Are you fully, are you not feeling fully sexually expressed because you've really never explored it? Maybe, or because you're too scared of doing things or saying things or talking about things that you think, you're going to be judged on, or, you really don't even know how to begin. Like I was talking to a client the other day. She didn't even know how to even explore her own sexuality. I was like, you can even just start looking at yourself in the mirror, putting like some sexy music and just start kind of like looking at yourself and making love to yourself just through looking at yourself, and there's a lot of people that don't even know how to navigate the more basic things as we would think. And so it's all about exploring what's happening with the individual, where they're at, what's happening with their personal development, spirituality, health. Health is such an important thing. All of these things. And then be able to see, okay, how are you two matching? Is there a communication? Are you saying to each other what you truly like? What you truly need. Communication is a massive thing that I'm stumbling across in this coaching.
It is.
Yeah. People, if you're in a long-term relationship and then you realize you never said anything from the beginning, then you feel guilt, or you're scared of saying something because you don't want the other person to feel bad about it, to feel that like they're not doing a good job or whatever, or it's just a mind game, right? You just go into this kind of like pattern of guilt or fear, or what if they react and they don't want to be with me anymore? Or what if it opens up the door for them to say something that I'm not doing right? So it's kind of like open communication is such an important thing with relationships and sex, period.
Is that the number one sort of hardship you find that people?
It's definitely one of the top ones. One of the main one that I see is body image issues.
Of course.
Yeah. In women mostly, mainly right? But women, men as well. In men, what I'm seeing a lot is that you're too much in your head, and when you're too much in your head, you're not being able to fully embody sexuality, fully connect with the person that you're in front of, just fully be in the moment and release. Because
is that, when you say in the head, is that anxieties or? It
can be so many different things. I mean, you guys are constantly in your head. So you're very logic, you're there. So it's a lot harder for you to kind of detach from this, and so it could be that you're stressed about your job. And whilst you're having sex, you're just there, right? And you're just going and it's very mechanic and whatever. Whereas if you're wanting to have a good sexual connection with the person that you're with, you really need to release anything. You do not need anything in your head, or you just need to be a channel, a vehicle, just to connect fully with the person who's in front, to be receptive and just flow with the energy that's there. If you're in your head, you're not going to be able to get into that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be accurate to describe men as having two machines? You know, because our physical machine, that drive, that sexual drive that we have, is generally very different to women's, and it's extremely powerful. And I've described it to a few women in my life, and they were blown away. It's literally saying to me, "You're joking. Is that really what it's like to have that tiger in there?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. 24 hours a day. It's so powerful. And the gentlemen, keep it in the right place and bring that tiger out when the time is right. And then, you know, what word can I use for the men that don't? You know, there's men that can't control that and whatnot. So, but women are more.
Yeah, we definitely work in a different way. Now, I am very horny. Like my cousins joke.
I haven't heard that word for quite a while.
My cousins just joke about, they say that I'm like a guy, you know, sometimes like I just see hot men going by and I feel this fire inside of me and I have to comment about it and they just laugh at me.
You understand what it's like then?
Yeah,
You're one of the anomalies in the female world that understand exactly what it's like.
Yeah. Now I go in and out of it. It's not constant. There are some periods of time where I'm not even hooked on that, where I can be completely separate from it, you know, but there are other times where I feel like I'm going to die inside. So I can completely understand. And yeah, I feel like you guys have two different machines. So it's kind of like, finding a way of you being able to connect both and to actually stop being here and start being here and connecting your heart space with your other machine. And that is going to create a really amazing energy where you're not going to need to feel like you need to control, because control comes from your head. It doesn't come from anything else. You know, your head is telling you that you shouldn't do things or you should do things or whatever. Whereas if you're connected with your heart space, it really just flows. It's natural. You don't need to judge anything because it is what it is and it has to be, right? So there's less fear there. So like for men, you guys really need to stop tapping into this and start tapping into this and connecting it.
It's hard though after all this time.
Yeah.
Sorry, what I mean by time is just say it's a week or 2 weeks between being intimate with a partner or someone or a month or 2 months. It's really hard to have any type of other connection or heartfelt anything after all that time, where women may have it switched off for that period of time and then turn it on when the opportunity arises for intimacy. Whereas not understanding, you know, that we've been bang, 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 just 24 hours a day in that period.
Yeah.
So it is difficult for men. You know, what can men do in the time prior to intimacy or when there's a lack of intimacy to have that control when the time does come? Well,
I mean, I would definitely say that meditation is such an important thing.
We always come back to meditation on this podcast. Everyone. It's true though.
Yeah.
It helps in so many ways. And I didn't expect you to say that.
Yeah.
But that can help as well to calm the mind. Because if we're calming the mind with meditation, it works across the full spectrum of emotions and activities and
meditation.
Everything.
That's it.
Okay, I'm going to have to do a podcast on meditation because everyone's going to be saying, what? I can't meditate. How the hell is it? I've been wanting to do one, so I will do that soon.
I think meditating is the absolute most important thing that anybody can do in their lives.
But in respect to this topic, you'd have to be meditating with an intention.
Yeah, I mean,
or just straight out meditation.
There are so many different types of meditations, and at the end of the day, they're all going to help you calm your mind and really connect more with your intuition, with your higher self, with your heart space, right? And yeah, just calming yourself and falling into that space of being fully connected and aligned with yourself. And when you're like that, you're connected with your partner.
Correct.
And so it's all about being able to receive their energy and give your energy to them. And it's just a flow, right? And when you're connecting to that, you're not having to stop yourself. You're not having to be constantly saying, no, this is too much or whatever, because you are in a flow, because you're receptive to that energy and you're just flowing with it. So you're not going to have these feelings that you guys have that, oh, this is too much, or
it's hypertension, too much stimulus.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming into the system, and
you just
that's how meditation
It's
works.
kind of like trance, it's kind of like being in a trance. When you're having sex and you're fully connected, you stop being your body. You just go into this flow, which is beautiful.
See, a lot of people wouldn't understand what you're describing right now.
Yeah.
Sex is like mechanics,
No.
for a lot of people. And I hear it all the time. I work with men here, and if someone says, oh, my wife says, I just, you just want to fuck something, a partner or something like that. Yeah. Half the guys in the room put their hand up and roll their eyes like, oh, that's what I get. Yeah. That makes me really sad. And I can see that because of that lack of understanding what the two genders are like and how they operate in regards to sex. That's how men are perceived a lot of the time, as you just want to fuck something. Yeah. And excuse my language.
No, of course. There's misunderstanding.
I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah. There's misunderstanding and there's misinformation as well. And I think that porn has had a really big impact in a negative way in what sexuality is for men and for women. It seems like sex, there's an end goal. You want to get to the orgasm. People don't understand that sex is so much more than that. It's kind of like life, people are wanting to get somewhere, whereas they don't understand that it's all about the path, right? The road. And sex is exactly the same. Why would you ever want to get to an orgasm immediately? What? I mean, what is once. It's not, unless women were able to orgasm several times and go into it again and whatever. There are some men that do it as well. I've been with men that don't ejaculate, that they hold it in and they can continue going and they come several times. I've been with a man that was able to come 5 times.
Do they run workshops?
I could ask him actually. So, and he doesn't, and he can, kept on going and going. So it's not about, okay, let me choke her and spit on her and Jesus. Yeah, exactly. Well, what porn does. It's not about just like that, the entertainment of just that. Sex is so much more. We talk about tantric sex, and connecting and using your body as a vehicle to be more connected to, a higher thing than you. It can be so much more pleasurable than just, oh, let's get to the orgasm and thank you so much for your time type of thing.
So what's an example of something that people could enjoy or feel differently prior to that end goal? Because people are so time poor now.
Yes.
And we talk about that a lot on this podcast, people being time poor and tired, and that really complicates things.
And this is why my coaching isn't really only about sex. Sex is just one part of it, right? It's how I attract my ideal clients. But really what I do with my coaching is look at the whole life. Have you ever seen the Wheel of Life?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So the different parts of the pie. And
is that mine looked like a star, which meant shit wasn't going very well.
Yeah. So
look at the guy next to me. He's got this perfect circle, right on the outside. I'm like,
So ideally you want it to be perfect, because the level of satisfaction, hopefully it's a 10 in everything. Health, personal, finances, relationships, everything. And so what I do with my clients is I look at that as one of the first things that we do to see the level of satisfaction that they have in different things. And it's such a simple thing, but you look at it and you're like, oh, I didn't know I was not that happy here. Some of them, they're like a 1 or a 2. And it really shows you the things that are draining your energy. And so you really need to start looking at those things because people don't understand what they truly need, right? They really don't. They think, oh, I just need a sexuality coach because sex is not great. But we look at it and I'm like, no, my friend, sex is not the main thing right here. is because your finances are really bad. So that's affecting everything else. So let's start with your finances. Let's get them up to speed and let's see how that affects sex. And then we'll talk about sex, you know? So it's just the whole thing. It's looking at how your life is, how aligned you are, how happy you are with everything that you have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I've noticed that in relationships as well.
Yeah.
When things were easier financially,
yeah,
things were easier intimately as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very, very strong.
In a relationship, there's so much pressure. You're in each other's space. You're in each other's energy. You have to deal with the other person's energy. If they're stressed, you're going to be stressed, you know, and if you're stressed and we're having sex, you're not going to be 100% connected with the moment. And that makes me not connected with the moment. And I'm going to start building resentment or frustration or whatever. And it's just like a snowball. So it's all about building and expanding your consciousness and, you know, building on your self-awareness. Self-awareness, I always say self-awareness is the biggest and strongest tool you'll ever have.
What do you mean by self-awareness?
Self-awareness is being able to put the mirror in front of yourself and see, okay, so this is what's happening to me. I am feeling anxiety, but it's coming from so and so. So it's actually kind of stepping outside of yourself as a third person and looking at yourself and analyzing the situation without getting involved with what's happening. I'm feeling fear. So instead of feeling fear and just getting entangled with it and being like, oh, I'm just like so scared, you just come out of it and say,
look at it objectively.
Okay, I'm feeling fear. So where is that coming from? What is the pattern that I'm going into constantly? Why does this keep coming up, you know, or and so on. The other important thing is owning what is yours. Understanding in a relationship, for example, your guilt tripping is like a massive thing, right? You're like, oh, you're not doing this and I'm expecting this from you and whatever. Self-awareness is going to help you actually understand that all of that is yours to deal with, is not the other person's. You know, there are things inside of you that you're not happy with, that you have high expectations about it, and so on. So self-awareness is helping you see where the problem really is, as opposed to putting it out there and thinking that it's external to you.
And a lot of people don't take the time to do that because they haven't been shown the tools from someone like yourself. And I imagine many people will just use coping mechanisms and just escape the problems and not self-analyze, just kick the can down the road, you know?
Yeah. Unfortunately, our society, you know, I feel like we've been brainwashed from almost the moment that we're born. I strongly
agree.
Yeah. And our society really wants us to feel like we're not good enough and that nothing is good enough, because we need, you know, how would makeup companies be selling makeup or, you know, to women that just feel completely empowered without it?
Body augmentation,
for example,
fancy cars,
everything.
clothes.
So we're taught from a very young age that nothing is ever good enough, that we always need more, and that it's external to us, that nothing comes from inside, that anything that's external to us is going to help us with our problem. And so it's the same thing when we talk about problems that we're having. Is not us, it's external.
And we can fix it with external things.
Exactly. So everything is external. And
everyone's cashing in on it.
Yeah. Meditation really helps because it brings you back to who you truly are. And it helps you kind of look at yourself as an observer, as opposed to actually always putting your energy out there, or your consciousness, or your attention. I use, you know, all these words mean the same thing. Different people understand them in different ways, but they're all the same thing. You know, it's just basically bringing your awareness, your consciousness, your attention back to yourself, and understanding that everything, your inner world, is truly going to reflect in your outer world. Anything that's happening inside of you is just reflecting itself in front of you, you know? So if you change everything here, then everything out there is going to change.
Including sex.
Including sex?
We're talking about sex, and then we've come into meditation and self-realization. And this is why I'm really intrigued by you and your service.
Yeah, because sex is just an expression of what's happening inside of us? Are you able to connect with yourself? Are you able to accept yourself? You know, and if you're not, then how are you going to be able to connect with sex and connect with somebody else?
It's very true. It's like, it's just the lava from everything that's going on in our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very true.
Yeah. And so when you're really connected with yourself and when you love yourself, my God, sex is just beautiful. Of course, the other person needs to bring their own thing, right? But if you're just truly immersed in what's happening and completely empowered in your own body and your own sexuality, and you just let everything out, not thinking, oh no, this not, or whatever, but
Can't
just
do that.
Expressing yourself fully and letting the wild side out or the tender side out, whichever side just comes through. It doesn't matter. You don't judge it. You just let it flow through you. Then that is what sex is all about. The connection with yourself and with the person that's in front of you, and you both creating one. That is in itself the magic.
I can see you light up when you're talking about it. And I imagine how many women would be watching you right now going, I want that. You know, I want that, you know.
I love it.
You're going nuts.
Yeah. I love exploring sex. You know, I don't stop myself from exploring. Like, for example, I remember when I was growing up thinking, oh, am I a lesbian? You know, I think that most women and maybe men as well go through that question of...
Nope, never. Oh, am I a lesbian?
Yeah. You definitely are a lesbian.
Sure. Very proud, liberated lesbian.
So I remember going through that question and being like, oh, no, I can't think like that. Like, how could I ever be a lesbian like that? That's terrible type of thing. I had never had any issues against like homosexuals or anything like that, but I was scared of being one when I was a teenager. And then I just released that.
Was it like around 17 years old?
Yeah, I think, no, actually maybe 14, 15.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's when I decided that I wanted to try it. Because like, how do you know that you don't like something if you have never tried it, right? You say you put your wall down and you put your foot down and you're like, no, I'm not this, but it's based out of fear that it could be true, right? So a lot of people will never explore that, obviously, because of that. But I was never scared. I was like, well, if I'm a lesbian, then that could be even like great. Although I was thinking, you know, I always thought, oh, but two women are so complicated. I don't even know how that would work. Like, you know, and I ended up trying it. I ended up having sex with a woman and it was great. I mean, I had fun.
So hang on a minute. She was a lesbian.
No,
she was.
No. It was an unspoken thing. We just knew that we were going to try it. You know, we met each other. There was a very nice connection and like
hey, Tony, don't get any ideas, mate.
We just got together at nighttime and we just went into a flow, you know, and we
you're very good at flowing.
Yeah.
And you teach people what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to provide a tool for someone. Just say that there's a couple, a man and a woman.
Sure.
And I know you don't work with couples, but you would work with them individually. Mm-hmm. What's the first step someone could make who are just not meeting? You know, the busy lifestyle, they're not connecting intimately. What would be step one for the individuals before they see you? You know, man experiencing resistance. You know, the woman's holding back and not feeling good about herself.
The most powerful thing that I've discovered for myself and for others is just sitting in front of the person, you know, like being one in front of the other. She could be like on top, just like with her legs around him and just staring at each other, just eye gazing and just breathing into each other, syncing your breath to one another. And that in itself is going to relax, them. And it's going to make them connect with each other and just get into that and do it for like a few minutes. You can also grab each other's hands and start kind of like doing this together, just flowing, just like I'm breathing out and he's breathing in, and then you're breathing, like he's breathing out and I'm breathing in. And, you know, it's such a relaxing and very, it establishes such a gorgeous, deep connection between the two that after that, everything is so much easier.
I can imagine everything would just fall away after a few minutes. Is that part of tantric?
Yes, that's a tantric exercise.
I was going to ask, I can't imagine that anything would have been challenging for you in regards to intimacy and relationships. Because I had that here to ask you, but have you had anything to overcome, even with your experience and from quite young being mentally involved?
Yeah. So,
or something you encountered today, something that's maybe a bit more.
No, I grew up in a society where beauty is such an important thing. Society in general, beauty, we're bombarded by messages that, you know, you need to be perfect as a woman to be valued by men or by people in general. In Chile, that is even because my teenage years were mostly in Chile. So that's where it all unfolded for me. In Latin America, there's very high standards of what you need to look like and how important that is for everybody. Yeah. Not only that, I grew up in a very beautiful family. So there was a lot of competition there. Not like more unspoken competition. You know, you see all these other beautiful people around you and you're like, I'm not good enough. And so I needed to overcome my insecurity about what I look like and, you know, body image issues like crazy. Yeah, that was very hard because when you're in a headspace thinking of, oh my God, how does my body look whilst we're having sex? You're really not connected with. Yeah. And I used to struggle with that a lot. Now it's like, I love it, but yeah.
You mentioned something about people assuming that a degree of your success has come from.
Yeah. So, you know, as a woman, you don't really like to hear that, oh yeah, but you got there because you're pretty. You know, it's really annoying because it takes away so much of the powerful being that you are. Because, you know, these are just vehicles. Some people are more lucky and some aren't. We didn't really do anything to have this necessarily. You can build your body. I agree with that. Great for you. You know, you've built your own body, but your face really you didn't do anything for that. And so, whenever I get compliments, I love compliments about what I've done or who I am, what's inside of me. You know, when you get a compliment of you're pretty, it's nice. But whenever somebody's going to give me a compliment, I'm like, what are they going to tell me about like how powerful I am or how successful or or how nice or how tender or caring or anything like that I've built because I've built that through my sweat, blood and tears and so it's very frustrating being a woman, especially as well, because men, you know, I'm sure that they're like most women get this. Oh, but you got it because of what you were wearing. You know, it was because of that. It was because of how you looked at him, because you flirted with him or whatever. Yeah, it's a massive topic for us, I think.
Well, it's a good message to men there listening.
Yeah.
That's a key.
Yes, please.
Compliment on something else.
Yeah, it's the nicest. It depends on who's receiving it. You know, if you have,
because there are people who just want that.
Exactly.
You know, tell me I'm beautiful. Yeah.
If you have a woman that's very insecure about how she looks, then the thing that she's going to appreciate the most is that you compliment about how she looks. But if you have a woman that you've seen that has achieved so much in her life, please never say, oh, it's because of how you look, because that really takes away everything that you've done that has nothing to do with how you look, you know? So, yeah.
So your practice that we've been discussing today, is it online? How does it work? Just say me as a gentleman do you help people find love or just deal with intimacy Or you'd go into confidence, wouldn't you? What's happening?
I help people find self-love.
Self-love.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a young man, either in a relationship or not in a relationship, and I contact you. What can I expect? How will you help me?
Yeah. So we basically tap into. I work with people from, we do 6 months at least, or up to a year, because less than that, you really don't see a proper transformation. Because you need to go deep into blocks as well. We go into an understanding what your inner critic is constantly telling you, or, your interpretations of and how you see different things that happen to you. Like, are you coming from a place of victimhood, or are you a fighter, or are you really looking for win-win situations or whatever? So we look at how you're designed, basically. Which values you have. Are they fear-based, or are they conscious-based? Are they, something that you've grabbed from your parents, or are they something that, you've created yourself because you know who you are? So we go really deep into who you are, like really, amazing, really deep. Yeah. And we go to the different blocks that you have. I think that I mentioned that already. And see there every single week, because it's one call a week, is going to be something different. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world? Anywhere in the world.
So every single week, there's something different. And the thing about coaching is accountability as well. So you have an idea of where you want to get to. It can be something around sex, having better sex life with your partner, or it can be finances. It doesn't matter, right? So a coach, what do they do? What do we do is help you get from A to B, because you know that without some sort of external help, you're not going to be able to get there. So it's all about creating goals. What is your end goal? And then let's create smaller goals to get into that. And what is blocking you from getting there in the first place? Why haven't you gotten there yet? So it's a massive exploration about, your present moment. You go back into the past a little bit to understand like conditioning, programming, etc. But like it's mostly focused on the future and, okay, how are we going to move past these blockages, past these limiting beliefs and everything to get to where you want to get to. It's a beautiful process.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's so broad.
Yeah.
And would surprise, I think, a lot of people that would take the journey into helping themselves with a particular issue.
Yeah. So,
it'd be really enlightening.
Sexuality.
Helping say me, if it was me doing it across the whole board of my life.
Yeah, of course.
That would be so gratifying.
Of course,
It'd be a really nice surprise.
Because, so many coaches start freaking out when we need to pick our niche, what's your niche? What's your niche? And
do you have a niche?
Well, sexuality.
Well, and they say call it an avatar. Who's your client?
Ideal client.
Who's your perfect client? Age, gender?
Yeah, location. Usually I guess it's from 30 to 45 years old. Location, it doesn't matter. Men and women alike, but people who know that there's something missing in their lives. But they have this like fire, but they really don't know how to let it out. And they're really frustrated about it. They have no idea how to do it. And they are, they go through anxiety or stress, or they're depressed because they're not aligned with their life right now. And they know that there's so much more. So my ideal client is somebody that is willing to put in the work, and that's, ready with that energy, kind of like, I have this energy. I don't know how to completely let it explode. And I'm ready right now. I don't, an ideal client is somebody who understands that now is what's important, and not, but tomorrow or the next day or whatever, because that's procrastination and it's been happening your whole life. And this is why you're where you are right now. Somebody who's switching it on and who's like, no, I know that I need to change right now. I'm ready. Where do I sign? Type of thing. It's not about like signing clients immediately, but it's about having that energy and working together, because this is a partnership. It's not like I'm going to take you somewhere. You're going to take yourself. So you really need to have that energy to do so.
And that's the best kind of coaching, isn't it? Giving people the tools or the keys to open their own doors. I hear that a lot.
So people,
with professionals.
Exactly. So people ask me about what coaching is, and what I say is basically just holding space for you to explore yourself. So what I do is ask you all the right questions at the right time, but you are going to tell me what your truth is, because I could tell you what my truth is, but it's not going to be yours, because we have different backgrounds. We have a different personality type. You know, we're so different. So my truth is not, there are no absolute truths. The only absolute truth is love.
That's something I've learned of late as well. It's two people can walk out of a room and both stories are true, yet completely polar opposites apart.
And you get that in relationships as well. You know,
Vipassana taught me to do that. I walked out of there going, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
You know, how many billion people on the planet? And that's how many planets there are, because everyone's version of the same event and the same experience completely different.
Exactly.
They've studied this as well. It's not a theory.
And exactly. And how you interpreted it or how you lived it is
my
not,
truth.
Yeah, it's not better or worse than mine. It's as valuable as anybody else's. So you really need to, and that's why it's so important tapping into who you are and following your path.
And asking the questions so people can tell their own truths.
Yes, because there's mentoring and coaching, and I do mentoring as well. I do teach. I educate people on different things.
What's the difference between mentoring and coaching? So
coaching is holding the space and it's asking questions to the person for them to get to their own truth. And mentoring is actually giving you, it's kind of like, they like to say educating. I'm not sure I like that term, but it's really talking to you about different concepts, like what I've been doing now. You know, I've been talking a lot about different concepts that I've discovered or that I work.
Follow you.
Yeah, exactly.
And online, is it the same program for men and women?
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
It's exactly the same. I mean, the topics that you tap into obviously are different. Men work in a different way than women, but it's exactly the same. At the end of the day, we are very similar as well. You know, we need the same thing. We're all looking for the same thing: connection, love, etc. And
is the end goal always the same? Are you helping people towards what's my end goal if I signed up for your program? Is it whatever I want?
Yeah.
Whatever I want, whatever I need.
I mean, people are going to be attracted to me for the sexuality piece. So they're going to be like, oh yeah, I want to explore that. But you go into the first conversation with them and they realize, oh, there are these things that I would really like to work on. So that's why coaching is so powerful, is that people think that they need something, but they really need something completely different than that. And coaching really helps you understand what that is.
What's missing. Yeah, very smart. That made, perfect sense.
Yeah.
So where to from here, Francesca? Where's Francesca 2 years from now, 5 years from now?
You know, I don't like making plans.
Someone who's been on the road for 11 years. Yeah, sorry, that was a silly question.
No, that's good, because you also like, it's nice having a vision. It's nice, you know, going somewhere.
That's what I was meaning. Yeah. What's your vision?
I went through a stage where I wanted to help millions of people around the world, and as I mentioned before, and that was just my ego talking. And after my Vipassana experience, I realized that that's not necessary. That if I help one person, then that's amazing. Like I'm so happy if that happens, right? And it's all about, you know, everybody you meet is both your teacher and your student. So for me, the most important thing is to continue growing and helping other people grow and just growing together. So for me, is just going to be moving deeper into what sexuality coaching is. And I'm sure that it's going to shift a little bit as time goes by.
Does it change over time?
I'm sure, because you change. You keep growing. So your niche is going to change as well with whatever arises. Like, I've always thought that I'm going to be a spiritual coach later on. you know? So it's all about not creating attachment or expectation and just letting whatever needs to flow, not defining yourself as one thing or the other, but actually just exploring, just being open to explore as much as you can in this beautiful and diverse life.
You sound like you read the Tao.
No, I don't.
That's
oh, really?
a big part of its emphasis.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, not blocking, not forcing, just being, not being attached to results.
Yeah, just
the Hindu scriptures are exactly the same. It all comes back to the same place, doesn't it? The more work I do and the more people I talk to in this world, they all come back around to exactly what you just said. It's beautiful. It's something that you discover. I mean, obviously 11 years of traveling by myself has helped me so much to tap into so much of this. You know, you meet so many different people, so diverse. So you're always living outside of your comfort zone. You're always stepping outside and discovering new things and growing, and it goes and on and on and on. And it all comes back to the most simple thing. And that's it. We do overcomplicate life, don't we? Completely. I mean, we really don't need more than that. Yeah. Our minds are very powerful tools if we know how to use them. But usually our minds overtake us because programming, because so many different things that we've already discussed. So it's all about understanding how to use it and just releasing attachment, releasing control, releasing anything that's not serving you, and just flowing, not judging and just embracing and appreciating everything that comes, the ups and downs, and especially the lows, because that's where you learn the most in life. We spoke about that the other day, didn't we? Exactly. How do you act there? And that's what I talk to a lot of people about, man, and people who are going through adversities. What do you do when you're down? Dean and I spoke about it in the last podcast as well. Yeah. The negative emotions and depression. Oh, they're terrible. Don't go there. I won't go into it because it was in the last one. Sure. But what you just said was bang on with my ideas about what they are. Exactly. The word failure shouldn't exist because it doesn't exist, you know, but we're conditioned to think that way and to search for more, as you know, society and whatnot. But failure, I mean, I hope that I fail as many times as I can in life, because that's how I've been able to take leaps in my growth, leaps in how I've gotten to know myself, and how I've been able to just accept and flow with whatever comes into my life. So it's not about really reaching a high level of happiness. Like, everybody wants to reach a high level of happiness. Happiness doesn't exist without sadness. So you're never going to be just one. You need to be both, you know? For me, it's really reaching a high level of peace. And so whenever a massive wave comes, if you are completely centered and at peace, you're going to flow with it. So, you know, like, you just move with the wave and your hips move with it, but your center stays. So it's just like the external part moves and sways with it, and you go through the emotions, but your center is always there. And that's the beauty of it. So you go through it, you know, and then you're like, okay, in one day, that was it. Or maybe less. And it just becomes less time. And the more we practice that, like we spoke about the other day, it gets shorter and shorter, doesn't it? Yeah, exactly. I've heard the Balinese, what you were just describing, a Balinese man I know here, Oka, very smart man. Yeah. He says in our conversations, life's like a tree, a coconut palm. If people can see, there's literally about 400 of them out the back here. It's beautiful. Yeah. And he said, life is like a tree. He said the tree sways and the top moves in the wind, but the base, you know, the main trunk, stays still. Love it. And the roots don't come out of the ground. Mm-hmm. And that's how he describes hardship and life, you know? Yeah. It's lovely.
Yeah, I'm a kite surfer, so I always go for the waves and the sea.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And plus, like, I'm a Latina, I love moving my hips, so I always go to the...
I can see you wiggling in your chair, yeah. You've done that often.
Yeah.
Francesca, you're absolutely fascinating and talented. And thank you so much for coming in.
I really appreciate it.
You're very easy to talk to. You could, this could just flow on all day.
I know, we could go forever.
It's lovely. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming in. I will want to talk to you again one day. Spirituality coaching, that's a whole nother world. Your meditation, your solitary confinement in your Hong Kong Vipassana, which did not sound like mine. It sounded like hell. So anyone maybe steer clear of, no, I shouldn't say that. It's a beautiful place. It's lovely.
No, I mean,
just more intense.
But we were joking that it felt like a prison. So
Next time we chat, we might go into that a little bit. But thank you very much for today. I think you've delivered a lot here for listeners. I'm going to put some links in to your what do you call it? Your profession. I'll put some links in there so people can connect with you from all over the world, men and women alike. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been great. I really enjoyed it.
We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Have a nice day.
You too.